if you start to say, hey, don't do this, and there's an emotional implication of consequence behind it, right? Then it becomes manipulation and controlling.
But there's still a right way to do it.
Of course.
And a leader should not be saying, don't do this.
Right.
Like, there should always be an explanation, and there should always be the purpose of trying to have the person understand where you're coming from. Like, if they're trying to be a good leader, they need to do it in the right way. If they have to say, hey, we're not doing this, or you can't do this anymore.
Right.
He's going to explain it. He's not just going to be like, I don't like it when you go to the mall, so I expect you not to do it. Expectation on somebody.
Yeah. I think the difference, though, and it's sort of somewhat a difficult line between the two, is if a man is leading the relationship and he's acting as the authority in the relationship, then he needs to say some things that are standards for the relationship itself, or the way that things are going to be done in the relationship. And so there is, but again, it comes across depending on what you're trying to do, right? Because if you say, look, this is what we're going to do, or we're not going to do these things, that isn't necessarily controlling, especially if you're already in a position where someone has already submitted to your authority in that relationship or your leadership, and they're relying on you to do those things. However, if you start to say, hey, don't do this, and there's an emotional implication of consequence behind it, right? Then it becomes manipulation and controlling, right? So if I try to get you to do what I want you to do by having consequences that are emotional consequences, I'm going to be upset at you, I'm going to be mad at you, I'm going to treat you differently. Now I've moved into the realm of controlling. Whereas if I'm, as a man who's leading the relationship and who you've accepted the authority in the relationship, I'm saying, okay, this is how we're going to do this. This is what is going to happen. We're not going to be doing these things. Those are things where, again, the person always has the option to not be in the relationship. But when they've chosen to agree to something, that standard has already been met, right? So there's a standard that said, hey, if I'm going to be, we talked about the captain of the ship, right? If I'm the captain of the ship, or if I'm in a relationship, I'm the captain of the ship. That is a standard that I have. If you've agreed to that standard, then those things. But there's
still a right way to do it.
Of course.
And a leader should not be saying, don't do this.
Right.
Like, there should always be an explanation, and there should always be the purpose of trying to have the person understand where you're coming from. Because a good leader just doesn't bark orders.
Right.
He makes people understand why he's doing what he's doing and explains that. And I understand in certain instances, there might be downright things that he says in certain circumstances as a leader when it's like a dire situation, or it's like dangerous, or there's something like that. And I'm not talking about that. But like, no leader is going to be like, you can't do this or don't do this. And if he does say those things, it's not just that sentence. It is explained, and it's explained why. And so, again, I don't want guys to think that if they're the leader, they can just say whatever they want. And I know that's not what you're saying either.
Right.
They need to know what a good leader actually is. And that is not just barking orders. That's explaining why you're doing what you're doing, even if you're having to tell somebody, hey, you can't do this, and here's why.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, and I do understand that in the instance of like a man leading a relationship, that he is going to be making some decisions. And I feel like if a woman feels like a guy is a genuine leader and does what I just said, she has no problem with doing what a man says.
Yeah.
But guys, it'd be wrong of me to act like guys don't get it wrong. Like, guys do say things that do come off as controlling.
Yeah.
And some men are controlling and some men aren't, but they're coming across the wrong way. And that's what I'm trying to tell them. And I know that's what you're trying to tell them too. Like, if they're trying to be a good leader, they need to do it in the right way. If they have to say, hey, we're not doing this, or you can't do this anymore. Right. He's going to explain it. He's not just going to be like, I don't like it when you go to the mall, so I expect you not to do it. Well, like, that is, like, that still even needs some explanation. Like, why do you not expect her to do it? Is because financially that we need to conserve money, or is it because some other sort of reason? Like, a good leader is going to give that extra explanation
Right.
rather than just say it that way.
Right.
If that
But at
makes
the same
sense.
time, if you don't agree with the explanation, that doesn't,
Well, I'm not saying that
Right,
that
yeah.
cancels it
Right,
out, because
yeah.
then that's like
because that's the
goes
the
into
catch
trying to
22 is
control
yeah,
it,
exactly.
right?
Then it's
But
yeah,
I
on
mean,
the other
it
side.
should be
Yeah,
a place where someone could discuss it with you and
sure.
should, if they feel that, but that's not to say that it will sway your opinion.
and even in that situation, right? The thing is, what differentiates it from being controlling or not is, look,
the intent,
well,
the intention.
yeah, and also again the standard, right? Because it comes back to the original standard. If you're a man and you want a traditional relationship like we have, a modern traditional relationship, and you are the captain of the ship and you insist on being a leader, that is your standard, and that you are the head of the house, and and you are with a woman who is not going to comply with that, even though she has said that she will, then your standard needs to be that you're not going to be in this relationship. That's
Right.
you know what I'm saying, that's where it's like, okay, if you've given what is instruction and saying this is what I need you to do, or this is what, right, and you've done it in the right way, obviously, and then you're getting rebellion on that, then you as a man can choose, well, you know what, I made it very clear up front that this was my standard, right? That you're going to trust me. I was going to lead this relationship. I was going to be the authority in this relationship and make this, be the head of this relationship. Now you're not doing those things, and that's okay, because you are a free person. You can choose what you want to do. However, I'm also a free person, and I can choose that I'm no longer going to, this contract is null and void. It is no longer going to be a relationship. I'm not going to be in it anymore. And so that's the thing that makes it where it's not controlling. But see, and what you're right about is where guys do it wrong is because there's this, that's why I said there's an emotional manipulation that happens. And it happens in any time that you're like, if you don't do what I want, I will be upset at you. I will give you emotional consequences. And that's what happens when you try to feign power when you don't really have power, because that's the threat, right? It's like you have always the power to walk away. But when you choose not to walk away, instead you engage and then try to emotionally cause pain to another person in order to get them to do what you want them to do. That's when you're in the control area.
Right.